Time for another edition of the podcast here on Financial Choices Matter with Charles Scott and myself. And Charles, let's talk about 6 retirement blunders that successful American millionaires tend to avoid. And maybe how many are you guilty of? And if you're listening, you're thinking, well, I'm not a millionaire, I don't care. But you could be.
You might be, and especially if you avoid these.
Yeah. And, a million's not, it ain't what it used to be. So
this is true. Yes.
You might be able to get there and not realize it.
Yeah.
So it's a good conversation to have. So we'll do the 6, right?
Or like most of the people that we have a tendency to answer questions for, they don't know what they're doing anyway. So they might be, and they don't know it.
That's true.
Hey, I don't know. Sorry, I don't mean to insult all of you folks that are watching.
Well, you know what? And I think net worth, right? So net worth winds up getting that way for people. Sometimes they think there's no way I'm worth $1 million. And then you start putting stuff together and they go, oh crap, I am.
I have some of this and I have some of that. And
exactly.
Oh my gosh, my baseball card collection is really worth something.
Cool. You never know.
Mine's
all right,
not.
So let me set this up for you. So a 2024 Gallup poll finds that 7.4% of retired Americans have enough money to live comfortably, and you don't need to be a millionaire to land in that boat, to our point of that conversation we just had, right?
Yeah.
So I've got these 6. It doesn't hurt to mimic, right? To your point, it doesn't hurt to mimic some of the behaviors, so maybe you can get closer to this, right?
Copy what successful people have done. Geez, that's an interesting concept.
So number 1.
Yeah.
Investing too conservatively now during retirement, because we all want to protect what we got when we get something.
Well, that's right.
We all love the gains when it's doing well, and we're terrified of it when it's even thinking about dripping a little bit.
That's right. And that's just one of those things where you've got to just override your emotions, knowing that the logical staying invested, reasonably invested, just makes sense over the long haul. Over the long haul, stuff goes up. It just does. There are historically, there are times when it's better than others. There are times when you really kind of want to maybe lighten the load as far as going all in. But there's no right answer to any of these asset allocation things. There's just not. So it's what makes sense to you. What are you comfortable doing? If you're, are you looking to pay attention to it? And if there's news that's good news, does that have a positive impact on your stuff? If there's news, bad news, does that have a negative impact? If your portfolio is really sensitive to news and things, then, we look at that all the time. I want to know how much leeway do I have when we buy something for a client. We know how many shares we're buying, why we're buying it. If it goes up, how we do it. If it goes down, do we get out? And when do we get out? So it's just, it's having a sense of, knowing where the market's at, knowing where you're at, how much of a financial impact has it had, and can you write it out? Because if you can wait a little while, the probability is almost, not every time, but the vast majority of the time, it'll go back up.
Right. And that's the standard conversation. Historically, it goes back up. It's all about your time horizon. Obviously, the older you get, the less time you have for it to come back up, should there be a downturn.
Yep. So
but, we've been beat for years and told that as we age, go to something more conservative because that's the smarter, safer play. And to a degree, that's probably accurate. But most of
the time that works pretty well. There's times when you don't want to do that because you lose an opportunity.
Right. And you also have to just outpace inflation, if nothing else.
Well, that's right. And it's different now than it has been a lot in the past. And that's the stuff we pay attention to all the time. And we have these conversations with clients all the time. It's like, okay, so, I don't want to take that much risk. Well, you don't even know how much risk you're taking. I do.
For many people, they don't.
But you don't. Yeah. And if other things beyond the markets and the investments that you have are probably greater risks for sure, which we're going to talk about here next.
Is it next? I think healthcare is number 2.
Healthcare
is
number 2. Healthcare is number 2. That's exactly right.
So forgetting about that one, right? So healthcare costs, so again, a couple of things that we kind of get, we've been told forever and a day is when you get closer to retirement, go to safer portfolio, which we just talked about. We've also been told that you'll need less money to live on when you get to retirement, which that seems to be a misnomer. Most people do not. And most people don't want to go backwards anyway, lower their lifestyle. Right. And also that healthcare costs will be more affordable.
Oh, no.
That's way out the window.
That's way out the window. That's a total flat out fib. And that's it's just stuff costs more all the time. Healthcare costs more. Anybody that's getting older knows it. The average cost for a couple, what is it? I'm looking at a Fidelity study. They do that every year. The average cost of for a 65-year-old, a single 65-year-old, it's $165,000 over their lifetime, and just regular normal medical costs. If you're married, it's twice that. If you have a long-term care event, then it's just off the charts.
Yeah.
So you've got to understand the probability is that you're going to spend a lot more than you have been on medical care, and you need to be prepared for that. So
very true. Very true.
You know, I mean, it's not. This is really truly not rocket science. None of us get out of here alive. And the older we get, the more expensive it is to take care of ourselves.
Well, you know, so we're talking about the millionaire aspect. So one thing millionaires often do, right, is they have dedicated funds for healthcare, right? So, you know, a health savings account. Do you have an HSA available to you? That's a great tool, right?
I do. It's great.
Yeah.
You know,
well, and so if folks out there watching or whatever paying attention, hey, is that something your work offers or something? If you're still working, look into that, right? I mean, many advisors talk about it being the Roth on steroids, right? Because it's got all these advantages.
Absolutely. I mean, I could tell you the story sometime about a guy that bought a sailboat with his HSA legally.
We'll have to do that.
Because he was clever.
But give us a little bit on that though, right? The fact that you can, like, what do I mean when I say it's a Roth on steroids?
You put money in, it's not taxed. You use it to pay for medical care costs. It's not taxed.
It's triple taxed advantage.
It's triple. Right? Yeah, it's the only thing that is.
Yeah.
It's so tax. It's free going.
Gross tax deferred. Tax free. Excuse me.
Yeah, gross tax. Yeah, it's gross tax free. It comes out tax free to you pay for medical costs, and you could take it out. You know, you can save your receipts.
Right.
And just take money out later, but you know, marry the receipt with that dollar that you withdrew.
Gotcha.
Anytime you want to. It doesn't have to be now. It could be later.
Okay.
It's cool. That's how the guy bought the sailboat.
Maybe we'll do a whole episode just on an HSA.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So wealthy Americans also plan for long-term care, right? So on the national level, the median cost for a semi-private nursing home, Charles, is $104K a year. That actually sounds low. So depending on where you live, that could be worse.
Oh, definitely. It's depending on where you live. And it's not so much the cost of living that's there. It's how many people are available to provide care for you. What are the communities? What are the people? You know, how many are there in that population that you now are living in, where there's a lot of people that could come in and do at home care for you? You might move into a community where there's graduated living, things like that. But that's above and beyond the 165 per person.
Correct.
You know, so it gets really expensive, and we've gone over. So in the past, in the past we've talked about. You know, what are the odds of things? How much is it going to cost? All of that. Long-term care is one of those things that statistically you're going to have to pay for it. More than 2 out of 3 people are going to have to pay for it. And I was going to say
7 out of 10, 2 out of 3, however you want to slice it.
It's about that, and it can get really expensive. I mean, the most expensive thing, and this was not anybody we had experience with, but we saw it, was over a couple of $1 million because they had care for like 9 or 10 years.
Yeah.
It's just astronomical.
Yeah. So, I mean, the average long-term care event, I think, is 3 years. But if it's a mental,
cognitive issues.
Thank you. Yeah. It's 8? I think 8 is.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's typically a lot longer if it's not just a health medical issue.
Yeah.
If it's cognitive issues, it's a
so if we're trying to be effective, if we qualify, was it worthwhile looking into that, in our late 40s or in our 50s, maybe locking in premiums or something like that?
Well, you can also, there are some that you don't have to qualify. There are some policies out there now that they're not as robust if you want to go through the medical hoops and jump through them, but you can, no one will be declined, I guess is the easiest way to do it.
Gotcha.
To put it, you can get them.
Well, if you got questions about that, make sure you reach out to Charles and Sherry. We got links on the show descriptions below. Go to Pelleton Capital. Go to their website to get more information, pelletoncapital.com. That's pelletoncapital.com. Just click the link in the show notes.
Click the link
in the notes below. Yeah, wasn't that in Hogan's Heroes? Colonel Clink, wasn't he in there?
Clink.
All right, number 3. Spending too much on housing.
Yeah, that's easy to do. You get excited.
Yeah, you want something. You want a sexy land. You want some nice property. You want a pool. Whatever.
Yeah. As you're getting older, you need to pay attention to what's really, really important, and is spending a lot in property taxes or insurance costs. It's the home insurance costs right now that are making everybody crazy.
Okay.
Because of weather-related. Well, fire in Los Angeles,
Hurricanes in North Carolina.
Hurricanes in North Carolina, Florida all the time.
Yeah.
So how do you want to do that? You got to really think it out. There's not a right answer, but you need to, the right answer is really give it some serious consideration and figure out, let's not get carried away with buying the big giant house now when it's both of us and there's no kids and grandkids come once in a while. And right. It's going to be really expensive to run. Right. It's just,
do you need the party pad whenever the party is only there once a year or twice a year?
Exactly. So,
Redfin reports. Check this out. Redfin reports that the past 5 years, property taxes, to your point, have risen nearly 30% on a national level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a whole argument we could get into, Charles, about seniors should be allowed, should you have to pay, seniors, period, any age, should you have to pay property tax on a place that you paid for? If you spent $500,000 and bought a house, bought a piece of property, why do you have to pay property tax every single year? Otherwise, they can come take it from you.
Because the government creates nothing. They tax us. Yeah. And then they do whatever they want to with it. We'll see how this changes now in the next few years of, sort of a different perspective on all of that. But that's the way
we'll see some
works.
interesting stuff. Yeah. At the time we're taping this podcast, we're only one day into the new administration. We've got a ton of orders flying fast and furious. A lot of really good ones. So we'll see how they shake out.
Yeah. We'll see if they're legal.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting stuff. So again, we're talking about the house, right? So do you need the big property? And again, downside, and here's where it comes into a wrinkle lately, Charles, because many people would say, hey, we're getting older. We don't need the big place like you just talked about.
Right.
Let's go ahead and downsize. But the cost of houses have gotten so crazy that you might actually not be better off financially right this minute selling the place that you're in and getting another one because it's going to cost you just as much. And the interest rates are higher.
Well, yeah, that's a possibility. Got to do the math. That's what it always boils down to. If you don't know the numbers, you don't know the right answer. That's the business. That's the business I'm in, is knowing the numbers. Numbers have always made sense, but you just, to have a plan. Whoa.
And the emotional attachment I get to the house is there too, right? So factor that in, do the math, and then you can answer some of the emotional questions, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can look at the math and go, maybe the emotion changes once you see the math, right?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, we love the house we're in. We've been there 25 years. It's great, but we also know that that's probably not where we're going to end up.
Oh, interesting. So, okay. All right. Along those lines, number 4 on our list, Charles, sinking too much into the car. So if the house is one, I mean, shoot, man, a new F-150, it's like 80 grand, 90 grand.
I know. Do they ever go up in value? No. Does your house go up in value? Yeah. Cars are a money pit, period.
Cars, boats, RVs.
Any of that stuff is a money pit, and all the insurance that goes with it and all the maintenance that goes with it. And, Sherry and I have one car. We've had one car ever since we moved here 25 years ago. Sometimes it's inconvenient. Sometimes you rent a car if we need a car for something special because we're going in wildly 2 different directions. Don't overdo it. It's just a mode of transportation. It's just that. If it's an emotional high for you, then you need to think about it long and hard, in my opinion.
So, like anything in life, right? So we, as Americans, we have a lot of great, amazing things available to us. Just our sheer freedoms and the things we can do are pretty freaking awesome, right? And so everybody has the option to kind of think about what's important to them, right? So, when I first moved to North Carolina a long time ago, and I've lived here twice, once when I was a kid, then I moved back here later on in life. And I was looking for a place, and it was hilarious to me, Charles. I'm driving down this road, and the realtor's taking me to look for some stuff, and there's trailers, mobile homes, right? So there's a trailer, but with like a really nice Corvette sitting out in front, right? You know, or whatever the case is, then you get a couple miles down the road, and you get to this great big house, and a couple of just average looking cars sitting outside, and it got me thinking about, it's like, well, what do you want in life? Like, what is the thing that makes you happy? So if you're a car person and you really, like, this is the place that you're okay spending that money, that's fine.
Then that's okay.
Right. Plan for it, budget for it, strategize for it as you get to retirement. But to your point, just realize, what it is and why it is. And that's like anything in your investments, right?
Well, sure.
Pick the things that make sense for you and then go from there.
Yeah. Why do I, be self-critical of why do I think I really need to do this? And if it still makes sense, then okay. If it's your money, you could do really smart stuff with
You can
it.
stick it in your ears and just go boom if you want to.
Yeah, do dumb stuff with it. It's your money.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, don't complain about it if you do something dumb, and you just own up to the fact you did something dumb. I don't know.
Keep it real. Well, Charles, as always, just don't complain about it. That's right.
Yeah, it's the next one on the list is one that drives me nuts.
All right, yeah. So you mentioned the next one really annoys you. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Funding your grown children's lifestyle.
Yeah, if you want to do nice things for them, give them gifts and stuff like that. Yeah, but if you're paying for them because they're too lazy to go out and get a good job, fully on that.
Interesting.
That's just nuts. That's crazy. You're encouraging terrible behavior. They obviously didn't. I'm going to be really picky here. They didn't learn the right stuff all the way through. You being a parent when they were younger, and
they're taking advantage. Let's be honest, right?
There's no excuse. There's no excuse. I mean,
well, so check this out. Savings.com finds that 47% of people with grown children provide some amount of financial support. On average, that support is $1,400 a month.
Get a second job, kids.
Holy moly.
That's stupid. I mean, I have no, unless there is some really giantly compelling reason.
Sure, they just lost a job, or they just, something, right?
But yes, or they
need help for a couple of weeks,
or something happens, that is unforeseen, or there's a medical issue,
big medical issue, right?
All those kinds of things. Yeah, but just because they're lazy and don't want to go get a job, we have some clients that have kids like that.
You've got 20-year-olds where you're paying the cell phone bill, you're paying the car payment, and you're paying the car insurance. Even just that, just take those three items, and you're already probably at $600-700.
Oh yeah, easy.
Of that $1,400 a month that we just talked about.
I mean, I'm proud to say my kids were making money. My kids had business cards when they were babysitters at age 12. They told them, did we talk about this once before?
Yeah.
Okay.
And business cards, it's awesome.
Yeah, but if you don't teach them good stuff, they're not going to know good stuff.
Well, that's the point, right? So, look, we all want to help our kids. We all want to, see them succeed. But there is teaching, and then there is, enabling, right?
That's exactly the right word too.
Right. No, that's you've got to help them. You got to help them be able to survive challenges, whatever. Because at some point you're going to be dead. To your point, nobody gets out of here alive. You can't keep helping them. Right?
That's right. And if you don't let them figure out how to do it by themselves, if you haven't taught them yet, then you still have time. So teach them, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, for Pete's sakes, right?
Makes me
I think I said there was 6. I know we all covered 5. I know you said you were kind of like, about 6, not that big a deal.
The sixth one is mismanaging your required minimum distributions when you get to the point when you have to have, you have to start taking them out of a retirement plan. You got to pay attention to it, but those are just things that you need to know about. Some of these other ones are just lifestyle choices that you need to just be smarter about.
And if you're working with a financial pro, they're going to make sure that you're not missing the RMDs. But to cover the point, it is hefty, right? So it's a 25% penalty.
It can. So don't be dumb.
It used to be 50, but they hardly ever kind of enforced it. Now they moved it to 25, but they're enforcing it more supposedly.
Theoretically, that's correct.
Right?
Yes.
And you have to take it. It's required. That's in the title, right?
Yeah. Hence the term. Correct.
Yeah. So when you get to 73, that's the current rule. It'll go to 75 later, right? You have to pull money out, whether you need it or not. I was talking with an advisor the other day, Charles, and he was like, he said, I had this client come in, and they've only been with us for a little while. We're getting everything explained, and he's like, "Why are you making me do this, man?" He's like, "Look, I'm not making you.
You have to.
Uncle Sam is making you. I'm just making sure you know that it has to be done.
Yeah, and by when."
Yeah, and by when, exactly. So, if you got questions on your RMDs, making, how to maybe, use the money if you don't need it, you can reinvest it, you can do lots of different things, but you still have to take it. Make sure you're reaching out to a qualified, professional like Charles and Sherry, and get yourself on the calendar at PelletonCapital.com. But really, those 5 things are lifestyle choices. The 6th one is kind of, a mandatory thing, but it's ways that you can make sure that if you want to, kind of do it right and towards the millionaire status, right? Things that millionaires do that kind of help them out, then make sure you reach out and do that. And we'll finish up, Charles, with an email question real quick.
Sure.
Right?
Got it.
All right. So we got a question from Travis in the Phoenix area. He says, I'll be receiving a settlement from a medical malpractice lawsuit within the next month or 2.
Okay.
I have some credit card debt and car loans that could be paid off entirely with the settlement, or I could invest the money. What's your thoughts for somebody like me?
Ask a couple questions. It's funny, all the people that ask these, all the questions never give you enough information to give them a really great answer. But the
Well,
reality is,
roughly.
how much did you get? How much do you owe?
Okay.
What are the interest rates on what you owe? And if all of that isn't wildly weird and crazy, the probability is you're going to get rid of the debt if you just use it to pay off the stuff. If you have nothing else going on and it is simply between those two issues, invest it or pay off all this other stuff, I would probably, without knowing enough at this point in time, I would say pay it off. Then it's gone. And then
it is a good feeling. It really
totally. It's totally
yeah.
a good feeling. Yeah. And so, it's how did you feel about the debt that you incurred and why did you incur the other debt?
Yeah.
But the probability is, all things being equal, it probably makes way more sense to pay it off and then you're done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so many people, Travis, when they get a windfall like that, sit down with an advisor, look at the whole situation. Do you have do you have anything in an emergency fund? Maybe you put a little in there, right? Depending on the amount, you go a little in an emergency fund. Maybe you don't do all the debt. Maybe you just do the heavy, big debt. Maybe you've got a car loan that's, only 3% or something. So maybe that's worthwhile to go ahead and hang on to that, but get rid of the, the higher stuff.
Yeah.
And invest a little, right there, so it's probably going to be the smorgasbord, really. Of
most of the time,
things,
that's
right?
what we've seen. Yeah. So it's just like, let's talk about it and see what makes the most sense, because there's not a one way only way to do it.
Yep. Everybody and everybody's situation's different. And so Travis, if you're hammered with really high interest rate debt, it's probably going to make the most sense to get rid of all that, right?
Yeah.
So every situation's a little different. So again, if you need some help, reach out to Charles and Sherry at PelletonCapital.com. That's PelletonCapital.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the little podcast here if you would. We certainly appreciate it. It's on Apple and Spotify and of course YouTube as well. So just click the thumbs up and the notification bell to catch new episodes. And we will see you next time here on Financial Choices Matter with Mr. Charles Scott. We'll catch you later, buddy. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ready to learn more? Get a complimentary review of your retirement landscape today. Reach out to Charles and Sherry at Pelleton Capital. Don't wait and let time pass you by. Sit down and build a rock-solid strategy that keeps the focus on you and your family. Visit Pelleton Capital or click the link in the show description. And don't forget to subscribe to Financial Choices Matter on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
Financial planning and investment advisory services are provided by Pelleton Capital Management Limited, a state-registered investment advisor. Past performance is not indicative of future results. No one should assume the information presented here serves as a receipt of or substitute for personalized individual advice provided by Pelleton Capital Management. For more information, visit www.pelletoncapital.com.